Welcome to the Never Ending Backlog podcast, your place for short reviews from a gamer with the goal of reducing his backlog. From adventures to sandboxes, join our host as we walk through a collection of unplayed treasures. Now, let's take a look at the featured game of this episode of the Never Ending Backlog.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Never Ending Backlog podcast. I am your host Zach. Today we are reviewing Valhalla Hills. Lead your people, survive the wilderness, fight for honor. Reclaim your eternal reward. A brand new strategy game from the developers of Cultures and The Settlers 2. The genre is indie simulation strategy. The release date was 2015. The developer, Funatics Software, has built Cultures franchise, UFO Online, Settlers franchise, and Northland. The publisher, Daedalic Entertainment, is responsible for the upcoming Lord of the Rings Gollum game, Barrow Trauma, Unrailed, Deponia, and many others. Current price is $14.99, and according to Is There Any Deal, you could have purchased Valhalla Hills for $1.15 on Game Billet. Now let's jump into the actual review. The install and startup went very well. It was only 800 megabytes, so it is a very small game. I will say it did push all three monitors and stretched it out terribly. So if you are playing this on triple monitor setup, be prepared to switch this back to windowed mode or run some type of widescreen fixing service to change it up a little bit. I just ran windowed mode as I do with most of these games anymore, just because I'm using OBS to record it. And 1920 by 1080 is a better resolution for recording and for YouTube than triple monitors, which just looks really stretched out, unfortunately. The graphics for this game are pretty well done. Like I said, it is a smaller game, so don't expect amazing graphics, but for a 2015 kind of RTS top view game, it's not too bad at all. The audio, I really enjoyed the soundtrack and the sound effects. The Vikings sound funny, and overall, it's a funny little game. The battles sound really nice, and overall, pretty good. Controls, most time is spent using your mouse, so point and clicking and telling, building items and shops and stuff like that, and having your villagers go out and partake and do it. It all works fine. There's really nothing that jumps out regarding controls that seemed out of place. Regarding gameplay, you basically play as a tribe of Vikings. You basically continue to build and expand, and then you open up a portal, Viking portal for the gods. I forgot what the name of the bridge from Thor Ragnarok. Oh, I cannot remember the bridge. It's not the Rainbow Bridge, because I'm thinking of Mario Kart games, but it might come to me. If I do, I'll probably blurt it out, so I'm sorry about that. But that's what you're doing. You're opening up that portal, and essentially the first one is the tutorial is basically you just open it and you win. Huzzah. Later ones is you open them when you get your people near them, and then they'll send some monsters or beasts through, and you have to kill the beast, and then you can go through the portal, and that ends the level. So it's pretty simple to understand that process. The one thing that is a little bit different is when I say you control your people to move over there, you actually don't control your people. Like the Settlers games and all of those type of games, you don't actually control your characters. You are an omnipresent kind of being where you basically say build a workshop over here. And then eventually some of your people will go over there and start doing it. So you don't have direct control. It's not like Age of Empires or StarCraft or any of those type of games. You do not have direct control over your characters in that way as controlling them and telling them where to go. They are relatively smart enough where they'll figure out we need food or we need to do this. But for building construction and progressing the game, it is required for you to do it by moving and building buildings, essentially. Difficulty, I'd say it's not a super difficult game. I will say the hardest part about this game is hoping your villagers or your Vikings are smart enough to do what they need to do. But we're not going to jump too much into that until we get to the cons. So first, let's jump into pros. Let's talk about the pros of the game, because there are some. There were plenty of tutorials to show me what I needed to do, which I really appreciate. I've played games like Settlers in the past. Like I said, they're not usually my cup of tea, but I have played them. You get to play as Vikings and kill beasts, which I think is pretty cool. There are a lot of different features like log cutting and hunting and fishing, building armies, building the equipment for your armies. So you don't just build a war hut and start having your people. You actually, build the weapons and stuff like that for them to use to take on the monsters, which I think is really cool. And the levels seem pretty straightforward, with a clear objective. Open up the portal, go into the portal. If there's something blocking the portal, kill that thing and then go into the portal. Or they also have the other option where you basically sacrifice your people as human sacrifices to open up the portal or to go through the portal. You basically appease the gods, the Viking god. But let's jump into the actual cons. Like I said, I'm not a fan of these type of games where I don't have complete control of my citizens. So the settler games were never really for me. I like games like Age of Empires and StarCraft where I can actually control them. Now, I will say, there's a disclaimer there. Games like Age of Empires, which I was playing Age of Empires 2 with a buddy just yesterday, I forgot how much I hated the villagers in that game as well. Because how many times have you played Age of Empires, really any of them, where you build a wall and your settler gets stuck between something and the wall, and you end up having to push delete and kill your villager, and you're so frustrated. It's happened so many times. I always play as the island maps in Age of Empires 2, so that way I can build a nice rock wall all the way around my island, because I always play as the Byzantines, because I like cannons and I like defenses. Those are my I'm a big turtler when it comes to these type of games, and I always get stuck. So many of my villagers end up dying by sacrifice because they keep on getting stuck between the wall and the ocean. Just frustrating. But so I guess you get to avoid that kind of with this game, theoretically. Another con, this is kind of a con, but it's also kind of like a disclaimer. There's a game called Craft the World, which is a little bit of a mix of this game and Terraria. I would highly recommend it to anybody out there. Not saying there's anything wrong with Valhalla Hills. I just like Craft the World more. Craft the World has the same type of view spec of Terraria, so it's side view instead of top view like Valhalla Hills. And you basically, it's Viking, it's dwarf, not Viking, sorry, it's dwarf. And basically what it is you build massive cities or underground places, and you fight and you explore new places. But the other cool thing is you also are not controlling your villagers or your dwarfs. You're telling them where to dig, where to build, and like that, and eventually they'll just do it. But they seem very smart for the most part, which leads me to my last con for Valhalla Hills. These Vikings are stupid. They're not smart. There are many times where there's we have no food, and they're standing right next to a fruit bush, and you're just like, eat it. What are you doing? Or there'll be, it's just, they seem dumb. There'll be stockpiles of weapons, and they, for some reason, will not grab the weapons, and they'll just start punching the monsters. And of course they're going to die because the monsters have swords and stuff. And it's like, what are you doing? So it's frustrating. It's, like I said, it's one of those frustrating experiences where you don't have full control over your characters, and you rely heavily that the developers did a good enough job programming them to be smart enough. And unfortunately for this game, I just don't think they are. So would I recommend this game? Actually, I won't recommend this game. It's $14.99, which I think is a little high price personally. I hear the Settlers games are much better, and they're smarter and they work better. I would probably check out one of those first. Like I said, I didn't really used to play. I've had a few of them, and I've played them here and there. I'd check out them. I personally won't recommend this because I don't like those type of games, but I would recommend a game like Craft the World, hint, hint. You can find it on Steam. It also, nice thing is, it actually uses all three monitors, if you have three monitors, and it doesn't distort it at all. So it's literally just a giant map, which I think looks really cool. So unfortunately, I can't recommend Valhalla Hills. The graphics are okay, but I think the AI is just terrible, personally. Your Vikings are just frustratingly dumb. And, it might be me playing the game. It very well could be. And if that's the case, then I'm playing it poorly, and I'm not into it as much. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to recommend Valhalla Hills. If you like the Settlers games, you like those type of games where you don't control your characters like Lemmings, by all means, check it out. You'll probably like it. There isn't many newer games out there that support that type of gameplay, so check it out if you're in that type of game. But for me, just not for me. But anyway, that is my review of Valhalla Hills. We will see you next time.